So good afternoon, everybody. We'll have seminars on the legal frameworks for nuclear presented by the students today. The session will be moderated and hosted by Dr. Mitja Uršič, so I give the word to Mitja immediately. Just before doing that, let me remind you that we are recording this session. So thank you, Mitja.
Thank you, Professor Cizel. So today we have a seminar. It will be divided in two parts. In the first part, the SARENA students will give their presentation, and you have 10 minutes for presentation, and we will be quite strict. So please take care about the time. I will let you know when the time will when the time will run out. Just before that. When you will want me to move to the next slide, just please say next. In the second part, the Slovenian students will present their work, and they will have 5 minutes for presentation. We will go alphabetically. So that's it. The first presenter should be Brahim. So Brahim, if you are online, please turn on your mic and let me know if you are here. Okay, is Brahim here or not? Otherwise, we will move on and we'll try to come back to him.
It's probably difficult to find the space for presentation on faculty because we have in-person lectures and maybe somewhere on faculty.
Okay, but yesterday I think it was said that this will be online. Okay, perhaps he will join us later. So now I will try to move on to Abdelrahman. Yes. I think you are with us.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, I will share your screen.
Okay.
So Abdelrahman will tell us something about the legal framework for the case of the Egypt. So Rahman, the word is yours, please.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, just try to speak to the mic and a little bit louder, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is it good now?
Yes, it's better.
Today I will present nuclear safety legal framework in Egypt. So next slide. The outline of this presentation, firstly, I will start by presenting the country profile. Afterwards, I will present the nuclear power situation in Egypt, followed by okay, 1 minute, because like the screen.
You lost the screen?
Unmute yourself. Can you yes.
Abdelrahman, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just please continue.
No. Yeah.
Please, Abdelrahman, can you continue with your presentation, please?
1 moment, please.
Okay.
Then the development stage of regulatory authority, followed by technical support for regulatory authority and the main national laws and regulation. And finally, I will present summary and the list of references. Next. So as you can see, Egypt is located in the Middle East and has a coastline with Mediterranean Sea and Red Sea. The population of Egypt is about 102 million people and has a total area of 1 million kilometers square and the coastline length of about 2,900 kilometers. The electricity generation in Egypt in 2017 was about 188.2 terawatt hour, with an import with an 0.3 terawatt hour as a net export. Next. So here is like the nuclear power situation in Egypt. Any running or operating nuclear power plants. But in 2017, an agreement was signed between the Egyptian government and Rosatom to build 4 VVR 1,200 units in El Daba site on the Mediterranean Sea. On the other hand, we have some research and development facilities. We have 2 research reactors. The first one was built in 1958. And it is of a type light water tank, VVR 2 megawatt. And the second one was built by Argentina in 1995, and its type is multi-purpose open pool reactor, research reactor, and it has a power of 22 megawatt. Other facilities, we have a fuel manufacture plant, which is devoted for manufacturing the fuel for the second research reactor. Also, we have radioisotope production facility and 2 cobalt radiation facility, and finally a liquid rad waste treatment facility. Next. Here is the organizational structure of the nuclear organization Egypt. So directly under the Prime Minister, we have the Ministry of Energy and Renewable Energy, which has under it 3 divisions related to nuclear technology. The first one is the Atomic Energy Authority, which consists of 3 divisions also. The first one is Nuclear Research Center, which is mainly research center. The other one is National Center for Radiation Research and Technology, and finally the Hot Laboratories and the Waste Management Center. The other division in the Nuclear Material Authority, which main rules is exploring and mining for nuclear materials. And finally, we have the Nuclear Power Plant Authority, which is mainly the main role of it is like implementation of nuclear power plant in Egypt. And we have an independent regulatory authority, which is fully independent from the other nuclear agencies in Egypt. Next.
Wait, I have a problem. Okay.
So here we have the development stage of the regulatory authority. In 1982, a competent regulatory body was established in Egypt. Then in 1991, based on a presidential decree number 47, the National Center of Nuclear Safety and Radiation was established. In 2007, a long-term plan for peaceful nuclear program was on the table. Finally, in 2010, law number 7 was issued to establish an independent nuclear and radiological regulatory authority. The executive rule for this authority was issued in October 2011 by the Prime Ministry, and the full independence of this regulatory body was on the 5th of March in 2012. So here we have the main duties of the regulatory. First issuing and development of regulation, issuing license and permits for personnel and facilities, reviewing and assessment of licensing documents, carrying out regulatory inspection, conducting safeguard inspection for nuclear materials, supervise the transportation of nuclear materials, and the coordination of emergency response, and finally, research and development. Next. So the license here is like a chart that explains the organizations that is involved in the licensing process in Egypt. So firstly, we have the Ministry of Environment, and under it there is the Environmental Affairs Authority, and we have the Nuclear Power Plant Authority, and finally the Regulatory Authority. And as you can see, like this loop can go in any other direction. Yeah. And there are six main stages for licensing a nuclear power plant in Egypt. First, there is a site permit, then construction permit, then pre-operating testing permit, then fuel loading and approach to criticality permit. And finally, you have the operating license and the decommissioning license. Next.
Okay, you have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so now we have technical support for the regulatory authority. Mainly, the technical support is from the research and development division of the regulatory itself, or from the universities and different research center and international centers. The scope of the technical support is the development of regulation and like complete the national requirements and the guides for nuclear power plant, and also evaluation of the current national requirements and make necessary change to meet international guides. Next. So finally, you have these are the 4 main laws for nuclear power in Egypt. The first law is for regulation of nuclear and radiation activities, and we have a presidential decree that establishes the Atomic Energy Authority, and the law that organizing the ionizing radiation and protecting against it, and finally the law on environmental protection and its executive regulation. Next, please. So in order to sum up, as you can see, according to the IAE on nuclear safety that was presented in 1994, Egypt is considered as a nuclear country. The regulatory authority has established the Egyptian national safety requirements and regulation. In order to get a license for a nuclear power plant in Egypt, 6 main stages or permits should be issued. As you can see, also the regulatory authority is fully separated from other governmental agencies. And finally, the regulatory authority always evaluate and change the national regulation to always be with the latest developments in science and technology. Next. And here is the list of references and that I use. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Abdelrahman, to break the ice and to keep the time as it should be. So first I would like to ask you, are there any questions from the audience? No? Then you are mentioning technical support organization. It looks like that you have, we say it, internal technical organization incorporated into the regulatory authority. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, but the regulatory authority has its own research and development center inside it.
But there are also external TSOs. Do you know how many are they?
We have mainly nuclear department in the University of Alexandria, and we have the atomic authority is Center of Atomic Authority, Atomic Energy Authority, which is also has under it research and development center.
Okay, thank you. So if there is some additional question, please ask. Otherwise, we will move on to so Brahim, if you are now with us.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, so
so please keep the time, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Brahim and I'm from Algeria. However, today I'll be talking about the legislations in the UK, since I've actually worked in the industry over there and I'm more familiar with the regulatory framework in that country. With regards to Algeria, there is currently only one research reactor, and the legislations are not actually clearly set out, neither easily available. So that's why I decided to go with the UK option. A very brief introduction. I actually worked for EDF Energy, which is the operator of all nuclear commercial power stations in the UK. And one of the projects that I worked on was with a department called the Independent Nuclear Authority, which is basically the internal regulator of the company. They do the same work as the national regulator, but at the company level. And they sort of like oversee all the activities across the entire fleet and try and pick up any shortfalls or poor behaviors before being picked up by the national regulator. But I'm just going to say that on paper, as we'll see today, it might sound as a very straightforward process or legislations, but in reality, it's very complex. So I'll talk about the regulator, which is the Office for Nuclear Regulations. Then I'll come to the laws that govern the legal framework. After that, I'll talk about some of the aspects that make the regulatory regime in the UK a bit more different than other countries. And lastly, we'll see what are the processes for licensing in a nuclear new build. Next, please. So the national regulator in the UK is actually known as the Office for Nuclear Regulations, and it was established in 2013. However, before that, it was called the Independent Nuclear Inspectorate, and it was created in 1960. It is completely independent from the government, so it's just an entity by itself. It doesn't belong to any department within the government, and their work is to regulate all nuclear activities from design, operation, decommissioning, or transport of nuclear fuel at all nuclear sites, whether it's research, commercial power plant, or military use. As we can see, the areas of responsibility are nuclear safety, nuclear security, safeguards, conventional health and safety, and the transport of radioactive material. The ONR has the authority to put in place any enforcements in case of there is no compliance by any party. Next, please. So here is a snapshot of the legal framework in the country. So if I start at the national level, we can see that is the ONR, and those are the fundamental laws that underpin the legal framework. We can see the Health and Safety Work Act, INAs and radiation and other. So some of them are actually to ensure the health and safety in all industries, and some of them are very specific to the nuclear industry. Also at the national level, there is the Environment Agency, which their job is to regulate any nuclear activities that might cause harm to human health or the environment. I just would like to point out, we can see that there is the EA and the SEPA, which one of them is for England and SEPA is actually for Scotland, since there are different countries. There is also one for Wales, but at the moment there is no nuclear power plant in Wales, so that's why it's not included here. At the European level is the Euratom, so they are part of the, as we speak now, they are still part of the European Commission for Euratom, and they have to comply with some guidelines. At the international level, there are the Safeguard Treaty, which is for non-proliferation. So they signed for that agreement as well. Next, please. To examine the regulatory philosophy in the UK is slightly more different, because when we look at the regulations, the UK regulator doesn't actually clearly set out a set of criteria that have to be met. It's more of a goal-setting approach, non-prescriptive. So it's up to the licensee to show in any way, it's up to them to show in a way that they meet the regulations, and that leaves some room for innovation, but at the same time is not very straightforward, so it's very challenging and complex. The main principle in the regulatory philosophy is the principle of ALARP, which is as low as reasonably practicable. So that if you look at the site license conditions that are in order to obtain a nuclear site license, there are 36 conditions, and all of them just set the goal that the risk has to be as low as reasonably practicable, but they are not actually like, it's just the requirement. And the last thing is, although it's the regulator job to grant the permission to the other parties, is actually up to the licensee holder to make sure that if any fault happens, it's their responsibility. Next, please. So when we look at the licensing process for any nuclear new build, the very initial stage is called the generic design assessment. And this process involves both the ONR and the Environment Agency, and it's not a formal step of the process, but it's more of a, sorry?
Just continue.
Yeah, it's not a formal step of the process, but it's basically more of like showing that you meet the government expectations and that the design is not site specific. It's more about the design. And then after that, there is the process for obtaining the nuclear site license, and that is granted by the ONR. And the site license has 36 conditions, and they have to be met, and it's up to the license applicant to show how these are met. Now, when they get to the construction phase, the company has to have obtained already 3 permits before they begin the construction work. So they should have the environment permit from the Environment Agency, the planning permission from the Department for Business, which is to get permission for any project that you are undertaking, and obviously the nuclear site license. So yeah, just to recap, and also just to give some sort of timeline, the generic design assessment actually takes about 4 or 5 years and is 3 steps, but sometimes they have to go into the 4 steps. There is actually currently only one company, that Hitachi, which applied for which is trying to license the advanced boiling reactor in the UK, and it took them 5 years just to finish the first stage. Now, when it comes
first step, for the first step or for the generic design assessment, they needed 5 years?
Sorry, just for the generic design assessment, it took 5 years.
Can you underline those 3 steps which you mentioned and the 4th one?
Yeah, so for the generic design assessment, there are 3 steps, and the first 2 steps takes about 1 year each, and the 3rd one takes 2 years. And if there are any issues after that, they have to go into the 4th stage. And the first stage is very generic, and then the more you progress along the steps, the more detailed the design has to be. They have to undergo like very high level scrutiny. And obviously it progressed from there for the nuclear site license and the construction. So we can see that is a very, very long process when it comes to nuclear projects. It takes a decade or so just to start building the reactor, or at least to finish or to finish. Yeah. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that was pretty much the legislations. Obviously, I couldn't go into a lot of details because it's very short time. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, please.
Okay. Thank you, Brahim. Is there any question from the audience? If not, I would first like to thank you that you underlined the importance of the independence of the regulator. And the second thing which is interesting for the UK case is ALARA principles. So can you give us a short example how to achieve ALARA in some specific case, if you know? Or in general, how to do it?
The ALARA principle is very challenging, and that's what makes it very difficult. That's what makes it very difficult to obtain a license in the UK. So, yeah, I think it takes if you like. I had the opportunity to actually attend some of the meetings with the national regulator, and you can see that neither the regulator nor the company agree on what is as low as reasonably practicable. So it's not very easy to define the boundary on where is it as low as reasonably practicable. So I don't think I'm qualified enough to go into that thing.
Okay. Thank you. So if there is no other question, I would like to ask if we have Monterosso online. No. Otherwise, do we have Afeef with us?
Yes.
Okay, I will share your screen and then you can start with your presentation, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
So do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, so I will talk about the nuclear safety legal framework in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Next, please. So an overview would be, we will start with the Jordan profile, then the history of the Jordanian nuclear power program, then the organizational structure in Jordan, the nuclear facilities in Jordan, and the references. Next, please. So just a brief, where is Jordan? Jordan is located in the Middle East. In the north, there is Syria. In the east, there is Iraq. South, east is Saudi Arabia. In the west, there are Palestine and Israel. The capital of Jordan is Amman, of population 10 millions in total and 4 millions concentrated in Amman. The area is about 88,000 kilometers squared, and the coastline is a very small one, 26 kilometers. The electrical grid is around 5,000 megawatt, and we import 90% of it. Next, please. So the history of the Jordanian nuclear power program started in 1966, where Jordan became a member of the IAEA, and then Jordan signed the NPT in 1974, and they revisited the Convention for Nuclear Safety in 2009. Next, please. So a brief history of the regulatory authorities in Jordan. So initially, nuclear sorry?
Just go ahead, there was a noise.
Initially, the nuclear materials and radiological facilities.
Just a second, please. The audience, I would like to ask audience to switch off the mics.
Okay.
Okay, Afeef, please go ahead.
At the beginning, all the nuclear activities were under the Nuclear Energy Department, which is related to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. But then in 2001, the government decided to establish Jordan Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which handles nuclear safety, security, and radiation protection. And later on, this regulatory body was merged into the Energy and Mineral Regulatory Commission by a parliament law. And in 2007, Jordan Atomic Energy Commission was established in order to investigate the nuclear power plant, which was supposed to be built in Jordan. Next, please. So just a very brief, there are a lot of regulatories and authorities other than these, but I will do it this way. The executive body in Jordan is the Jordan Atomic Energy Commissioner, but the regulatory body is the Energy and Minerals, oh, sorry, I forgot the brief. The Energy and Minerals Regulatory Commission, I guess. So it's basically an independent regulatory body which reports to the Prime Minister. Next, please. Next. So I will talk about
you want me to move on?
Jordan
Or
Atomic Energy Commission. No, it's here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just go on.
I will talk about the Jordan Atomic Energy executive body. The main goals are to first, exploitation of natural nuclear resources located in Jordan, primary uranium, and we have uranium mines in Jordan, and they're responsible about it. And then education and training of human power, and then they are investigating power plant. And of course, they collaborate with IEA and other nuclear expertise. Next, please. The MRC, which is a regulatory body by itself, which is the Energy and Minerals Regulatory Commission, it's not only related to nuclear. It's established in 2014 as an independent body, not only for nuclear power, but for all other resources, starting from renewables, coal, shale oil, etc. But when it comes to the nuclear, there are few goals they aim for. The first one, preparing laws, regulation, and instructions for nuclear installations, facilities that use radioactive material, and licensing process starting from operation, design, and construction. Next, please. Well, so why do we need these authorities in Jordan? Because we have mainly two nuclear facilities that can be considered as nuclear facilities in Jordan, which are the JRTR, and the other one is the Jordanian Subcritical Assembly. Other facilities are only related to radiation protection, but they are also under the responsibility of the EMRC. Can you move, please? So I will talk about the GRTR in brief. It's an open pool tank of 5 megawatt, can be upgraded to 10 megawatts. It's multi-purpose, used for radioactive isotopes production and irradiation of materials, and most importantly, for research and training for students. And in matter of fact, we had a course where we did some experiments there. Why I wanted to include this, because the licensing was kind of interesting. So it was licensed by the EMRC, but based on the Korean Institute for Nuclear Safety Procedure, because it's a Korean design. Next, please. The other facility I want to talk about, which is a synchrotron, which is a collaboration between few countries: Cyprus, Egypt, Iran, Israel, Pakistan, Jordan, Palestine, and Turkey. And the MRC performs evaluation and review for the documents related to the radiation protection, shielding, calculation of operating procedures, as well the inspection task for this synchrotron. Next, please. So just to give an example now about the licensing and the regulations, if we want to apply safety, security, and safeguards on the research reactor, it will go this way. For safety, the Jordan Atomic Energy Commission and the MRC will be responsible about the safety. But for security, MRC will give recommendations that should be followed by the facility itself. For example, in the JRTR, the facility is under the security authority of the director of the gendarmeria. And finally, for the safeguards, we follow the IEA recommendations, and we apply it through different authorities like the army, police, etc. Thank you. Next, please. For the references, what's interesting about Jordan, all the references are offered in English and they are open data, and there are a lot of flows, and unfortunately I didn't have the chance to include everything. That's why I tried a brief. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Afeef. So is there any question from other students or audience? No, it seems not. So first, thank you for a very nice presentation. For the case of your research reactor, if I understood correctly, so this is this slide, you said that you are using the regulation based on the country of origin.
Yes.
Is this foreseen already in your legislation, so that, for example, if you sometimes try to build the full power plant, that you will go for the country of origin?
For the power plant itself, no, it won't be the same. It will follow a different procedure, as far as I know.
So the regulation will be based on what? Do you have some information?
It depends on the EMRC procedure, but as far as I know, they follow the NRC procedure.
So from the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not sure of this. It's just an assumption.
Because just for information, when we became a nuclear country, we also followed the US NRC legislation, and during last years, then we moved to more our own legislation based, for example, also on the VENRA, so Western regulators legislation. So this movement from the country of origin to your own legislation, or legislation based on some other principles, can bring some problems.
And
can you imagine what kind of the problems we could get?
Well, actually, it did, because the regulatory body was kind of new when they started building the research reactor, and I guess there were delays because of the lack of experience, and probably that's one of the reasons they followed the Korean regulatory body.
Well, I would say that if you have small nuclear program, then following the country of origin makes sense. If your program starts to grow significantly, then perhaps some other approaches might be better.
But also one more thing, for I guess you asked before about the TSOs, right?
Yes, just go ahead.
For the JRTR, there were plenty of TSOs actually, both French ones, CEA and Nuke Advisor, and also the NRC from United States, and the regulatory body from Korea. So these were the TSOs for the licensing procedure.
Okay, so so the country asked foreigner institutions to do the TSO.
Yes.
But do you have your local TSOs?
No, I don't, as far as I know, no.
What about the universities or some research institution? Do they participate?
They do, but I don't think that in a direct way.
Okay. So thank you, Afeef. Is there some other question for Afeef? No, then I would ask if we have Monterosso with us. As far as I see, not.
Yeah, he has an appointment somewhere else, so he can't be available today. Yeah.
Okay. So then we have two things I would like to underline based on the first three slides. The first one is the importance of the independence of the regulator. I think everyone, all of you have underlined this. And the second thing which is interesting is perhaps the difference between the UK approach and the other approaches. So the UK approach is based on the ALARA principles. So you need to achieve some compromise based on the common practice, judgment. The approach requires more innovation, as Brahim said. And on the other hand, we have more like deterministic approach. So we have specific values which or specific requirements which has to be met if we want to get the license. So this is how I saw the presentation. So is there some other opinions, comments based on the first three presentations? Just feel free to speak.
I'll just jump in. I'm actually very glad that these presentations were made, so we have a nice overview of what's going on, and also in very condensed way. That's kind of what approximately was expected from my side. So thank you very much for this.
Okay, so now if there are no more comments, I would suggest that we stop the first hour and then we continue in 15 minutes. Okay, so welcome to the second part of the seminar, where we will see how the things are going on in Slovenia. We will have, I think, 8 presentations. Each presenter has 5 minutes, so keep the time. And first, I would like to ask Luka Berce to give his presentation on legal framework on radiation application based on the review of the key Slovenian law. So, please.
Hello, do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, first of all, I'm not so sure that I totally understood this problem. I showed our laws in Slovenia, if they comply with the essential elements on this slide. Is that okay?
Yeah, that is also an approach to do it. So you had a criteria and you checked if this criteria is met. So yeah, this is a perfect way to do the review. Okay. Okay,
so we will basically just show that in Slovenia we also don't skip don't go next slide yet.
Okay.
That we also need licenses, like we discussed in our subject, and that we need to define some responsibilities, and that that the authority that we need education and to re-educate depending on current technology, also with radiation protection and how to prepare for emergencies. And then we'll have to then I'll just show you what we do. So okay, next slide. So here, and I have in Slovenian, because we have laws in Slovenia, I'll just explain what they are basically for those who speak English. So this is here we see the laws for license. So basically, which for what we basically need a license to construct and operate it. So some of here are, let's say the first one is to operate a nuclear reactor basically. So this is normal. Then some of these are, I'm not going to read all of them. At the end, I'll give you a file of English and Slovenian comparison in a Word. It's about 300 pages long. I just posted some of the articles as laws for us. So this is for the license. It also applies for the dismantling of nuclear installations. That's the Article 4. It says that we have to get a license to basically remove the radioactive materials. The rest are more or less the same, but in a different meaning, something like that. It's just a law. It's hard to actually read it. So I'll just explain what the laws mean for every slide, and then we'll see that basically our laws are in comparison with the EU regulations. So
Berce, you just have 2 minutes left, so please.
Okay. Next slide. It's fine. I don't actually have a lot to say. So this is basically that we have to educate and retrain our personnel in nuclear factories. The first one, the 11th, is for education. Then the 14th is for knowledge preservation, and the 15th is for basically you have a test of knowledge. So it says here that every person who is in radioactive industry have to take another test every 5 years, so he can they get reevaluated on their knowledge. And okay, next slide. We have here basically how to define responsibilities between government agencies. With this slide, I slightly adjusted at home, but it's fine. It's just that I'll read an English law. It says that responsibilities, authorities, and lines of, this is not on the slide, and communications shall be clearly defined. And we have basically a law that basically says that in Slovenian. So that's basically that we have that. Okay, next slide. Here we have emergency preparedness. So basically what to do when an emergency comes. The right side in Slovenia is a longer description of what we actually have to do when an emergency comes and who we have to notify, and the complete authority, so they can mediate, so they can solve the problem. Okay, next slide.
Now you ran out of the time. Can you wrap it up in less than 1 minute? Okay.
Okay. This is just an article in Slovene that says that we have to be financially independent on the organization. We have to basically be independent so that this finance doesn't affect our judgment on whatever we are doing. Next.
We should stop. You ran out of time, so we have to keep the time also for
it's fine.
other.
I'm also at the end, so it's fine.
Okay.
This is just radiation protection. Basically, just what we have to do to protect people from radiation. There are a lot of laws of this. I only put one up. It doesn't matter which one. So we can go next. If the time is obvious.
Yeah, well, you ran out of the time. So really, we need to keep the time. This is one of the things of the nuclear safety is to also to keep some basic rules. So the rule here was 5 minutes. So you should try to do it in 5 minutes. So I would propose to finish here. But okay. I would just like this slide was interesting for me because here you are underlying 2 principles of defense in depth. And the first one is independence, being financially independent. And the second one is importance of the segregation. So physical separation, for example, inside the technical support organization. Yeah. Okay. So is there any question for Berce? From the audience? If not, we will move on. Just a note to Benjamin, you will, yes, it was necessary to prepare the presentation. So if you have any presentation, please send it and you will get your time at the end, okay? Then the next one is Čižmek Sebastjan. You are with us?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I will
Okay.
share your screen now. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sebastjan will give us some aspects of reviews at the Krško nuclear power plant. So go ahead, Sebastjan.
Yeah. So greetings, everyone. I'm going to do a brief presentation on nuclear safety in Krško. Next slide. So, strict safety precautions were already taken before the construction of the power plant. During the startup, there was some independent monitoring of the plant's impact on the environment, such as radioactive releases into water, air emission, nuclear waste management, etc. Also, a protection and rescue plan was prepared in case of emergency events. Next slide. The plant's practices concerning the environment are in accordance with the ISO 14001 standard. As you can see in this picture, it takes under the context of organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement. Next slide. After the Fukushima accident, additional safety action plans were prepared regarding the safety system, electrical safety system, power supply, supervision of radioactive discharges, flood safety, and storage of spent nuclear fuel. Next slide. The plant performs theoretical practical exercises, as Luka said previously. In this, the meaning of these drills is to verify the nuclear power plant's readiness in the event of an emergency. They have a picture of firemen. Next slide. Okay, now the legislation and international standards require that the plant carries out a safety review every 10 years, which is then submitted to a competent administrative body. The legal basis for this is the Ionizing Radiation and Nuclear Safety Act and the rules on the operational safety of radiation and nuclear facilities. Now, the last review was in 2011. 3 years later, it was the Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration decided the plant has fulfilled all conditions arising out of its operating license, and it let the plant to operate for another 10 years. Now, next slide. In 2014, the World Association of Nuclear Operators also carried out an extensive review of the plant's performance, and basically it suggested some improvements and recommendations that the plant can take into consideration. Next slide. There's also an organization called NUPIC, which focuses on the industry challenges regarding the procurement, planning, and management activities. This is they're basically evaluating suppliers for the quality of the product. Next slide. At the end, I would just like to leave you with the hierarchy pyramid of the national and international safety regulations. I'm sorry, I didn't translate it, but basically the left side, there are the national regulations, and on the right, there are the international. The basis, as I said, is the Ionizing Radiation and Nuclear Safety Act. On the top, there are laws, then under their rule books, safety regulations and criteria. And if you look at the international sites, where there are the criteria and recommendations from different organizations, as mentioned before. And that would conclude my seminar.
Okay. Thank you, Čižmek, for keeping the time. So Is there some question? Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Was there any fundamental change in the legal framework when, for the Krško power plant when it moved from Yugoslavia to Slovenia?
Okay, Čižmek, do you know some answer, or shall we help you?
I would need some help, please.
Okay, so Initially, as I mentioned during the presentation given by Afeef, our legislation were based more on to follow the country of origin, in this case US NRC. But then after we moved from Yugoslavia to now, then we tried to follow also the EIA, and in last few years we are also following the VENRA requirements. So our legislation is coming more and more harmonized with the Western European Nuclear Radiation Association. So we try to follow VENRA. So is this answer to your question, Brahim?
Yeah, thank you. Was there ever a time where the power plant was deemed unsafe and had to stop before some of the issues had to be addressed?
The power plant, as far as I know, was normally operating for last 40 years. There were, of course, some scrams, but everything was in frame of the technical specifications. So no specific issue as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. So is there any other question for Čižmek? If not, then we can move on. So Gajšek, you are with us?
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I will.
Okay, nice.
I will put your presentation on just to find you.
Okay, just let me put the timer on a second.
Where do I have it? I lost you.
Just a second. I'll tell you the name. The name is Aljoša Gajšek, and then.
Yeah. I found you.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Okay, can I begin?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. Hi, my name is Aljoša, and my seminar is about responsibilities and organization of emergency response. So if you can go on next.
Yep.
Well, emergency response is something that we do in the event of the crisis. And what I wanted to show this picture is that crisis can be kind of subjective. So you have a strict term that decides when the crisis is severe enough to cause the emergency response. We have two different crises. One is like a sexual crisis. Those are the crises that you would normally encounter, and they can be dealt with in a single governmental sector. But the crises we're interested in are complex crises. Those are very severe, and they kind of endanger our basic social values and interests. And the main point is they cannot be dealt with in a single governmental sector. They require a bigger response. So the basic social values, they are from the Constitution of Republic of Slovenia. They cannot be like subjective again. And the ones we are interested in most when you're talking about the nuclear safety would be health and life of people, protection of the environment, and even effective economical production. Next. Okay, so when the crisis happens, the emergency response is called out through QIV. This is crisis management and leadership. It's like a procedure, and it has to be called by the prime minister. So the main responsibility is in the hands of the highest governmental official, but it can also be, how to say, decided like or suggested to the prime minister by some department from which the crisis has happened. So now when we are in health crisis, I would say at the beginning stages, it was proposed by the health ministry, for example. I just put a little line here, just something to think about, like what happens when like the real crisis coincides with political crisis, because it has to be all decided at the highest governmental level. So the responsibility for what happened. This is not from my slide.
Just a second, I have a problem. Okay, So that's it. This is
not yet. So the government has to accept new policies to kind of mitigate the crisis, but they also have to take the input from the crisis to know which kind of policies they have to accept, and they're assisted by some other governmental bodies in that. Next. Those main governmental bodies are listed here on that slide. The most important one is National Security Council. I will talk a bit more about them on the next slide, but the other ones are, we can actually go right to the next slide and I'll talk about it then. Okay, when QV is activated, those governmental bodies are generally, some of them are already established, some of them established as soon as the crisis or QAV is activated. The main one is National Security Council. It's actually like here's written the main advice body, but in reality, it's actually highest governmental officials. Like the president of this council is the prime minister, and there are also the ministers and the ministers of other big segments, and they have to coordinate how the response will be met. Then the next one, also very important, is Secretariat of National Security Council. Those are people from different ministries and other places like National Security Intelligence Office, which is also the leader of this council, and they're established all the time in the times of crisis. They have to coordinate like the fast responses to the different ministries. Operational group of National Security Council is a group of five experts from different fields, and they're joined together by the Secretariat of Operational Group of National Security Council, and this is the guy that is always in the cabinet of Prime Minister. So there is like a fast connection if it's needed. Because those are experts, they're also in the next group, which is interdisciplinary operational group. Those guys are from outside the government. They're not generally part of the government, but they're the experts from the field that the crisis has happened. So again, for the current situation, those will probably be some very good doctors or something, and they gather information. They make analysis what's going on, and they propose what should be done to the National Security Council. The last sector here is Crisis Management Center, and those would be the guys, the governmental body, I guess, that kind of makes everything happening. Like if you need to evacuate people, those would be the guys that would get you the trucks or the telecommunication needed, and there will also be the, how to say, Vladni Govorec, the guy that tells the public what's going on. Those
public relations.
Public, yeah. Okay. Those would be in national crisis management.
Okay, so you ran out of time, so yeah, I suppose this is also your last slide. Yeah. So just a short question: who would propose the protection measures in case of the nuclear event?
Uprava za jedrsko varnost.
Yes, yes.
How is it called?
Yes, Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration. Yeah. So, is there any other question for Gajšek?
I would just like maybe want to add another thing when you ask me that. Before 2015, there was no one from Nuclear Safety Administration in the Secretariat of Nuclear Safety, but after that, when QAV was kind of updated, like one spot is reserved, I think, for someone from that body.
Okay, thank you for information. So now we move on to Govekar. Domen, you are with us?
Yes.
Okay, I will give your presentation now.
MPT.
Yeah. Okay. Here you are. So Domen Govekar will tell us something about the non-proliferation. So go ahead.
Yeah, as I said, in this presentation, I will briefly touch legal frameworks of Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Next one, please. This is the map of all the countries who have signed, who didn't sign, and who withdraw from the non-proliferation treaty. As you can see, only the India, Pakistan, South Sudan are not didn't agree to participate in that treaty, and North Korea withdraw in 2014, I believe. Oh, 2007, I'm sorry. Firstly, I will touch the three main, the non-proliferation treaty is, I divided it in three main parts. The first part touches the state's security and safeguards. And brief summary of this is that each nuclear weapon state, that means the state that has nuclear weapons, is obligated not to share not just nuclear weapons, but also technology and information to acquire such weapons. In that context is also that nuclear weapon state must not induce or encourage development of such weapons. The second part of security and safeguard is that each non-nuclear weapon state must not, is obligated not to receive or develop or take any measures to acquire material, scientific or technology to build nuclear weapons. The third part of security and safeguards is that every state must undertake to accept safeguards which will be in agreement with EIAA. So that means that all countries that participate in that treaty must in their legislation use specific safeguards or security apparatus to ensure that no nuclear weapons will be developed in their country. Next, please. One of the big parts of non-proliferation treaty is also the encouragement of peaceful use of nuclear technology. NPT explicitly allows use of technology for peaceful purposes, and also ensures that all countries with capability for building a peaceful nuclear technology should share every aspect of it, so that other countries can easily acquire all the materials, knowledge, and all the other things needed to build a nuclear reactor. NPT also states that all countries with nuclear weapons must share potential benefits of nuclear explosions. That means that if USA did a nuclear explosion and discovered that, I don't know, hypothetically, we can get the free energy by that, it's on them to share this knowledge to everyone else who signed the NPT treaty. Next one, please.
You have 1 minute left.
Yeah, it's the last slide. Just for the end, it's amendment certification withdraw from non-proliferation treaty. NPT is open for everyone, so any country can join whenever it wants. So we wait for India, Pakistan, and South Sudan. But if you want to withdraw from the treaty, you have to give 3 months notice to other parties of the treaty, that means to other countries, and also to United Nations General Assembly, with explanation why was it necessary to withdraw with that treaty. And then the UN General Assembly or the UN Security Council can decide if that's good enough reason for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any question? If not, we will just move on because we are running out of time a little bit. So next one is Tim Kelhar. You are with us.
Yes, I'm here. Can you
hear me? We can hear you. Just give me a second to put your presentation on.
Okay. I think it's not named Team Kelhar. I think it's just capital. Yes, this one.
Yeah.
It's a bit different. You will probably have to do a bit more clicking, or you can just
click.
Click
I already noticed. Please go on.
I didn't thought in front. Okay, so my topic today was organization of external technical support, and you can go on. First, I made a short introduction, and we can just skip. You can like press 6 times. Okay. It's just about the EA that they should do that the peaceful use of atomic energy is applied all over the world, and Slovenia joined in 1992, and there are already 172 countries in. So now we can get straight to the point. You can make a, the first is just a definition. Of course, the external TSO is a group or an individual which is outside the decision-making organization that has special expertise on a certain scientific and technical area. You can click it. So why are the external TSOs actually so necessary? Organizations with responsibilities for safety and the control of radiation risks may need to obtain experts' advice from organizations or individuals external to their own organizations. And like the next 2 topics are that the rapid expansion of nuclear-related activities in many states has highlighted the limited number of skilled and experienced experts available. Many regulatory bodies have generally identified a need to use, to a greater or lesser degree, sources of advice external to themselves and potentially external to the state. So this is like probably one of the main points why the external TSOs are needed on the plants and on operations, because there is probably really a limited number of skilled expertises on their own plants. So that's why you have to search for external ones, maybe even outside the state if if there is really a limited number of persons inside your state. We can go on. External workers show that, so the technical support function is of to a supportive and advisory nature to assist the decision makers in consideration of technical and scientific facts, principles, options, opinions, and perspectives. Technical support activity consists primarily of direct involvement in technical matters by experts and advisors representing technical consequences. All members of TSOs or technical support organizations staff have direct roles and responsibilities with respect to the performance and associated knowledge and expertise for nuclear activities being planned or implemented. But however, they are not responsible for actual decision making. We can go on. We can now look at few areas where the external support may be necessary. So, of course, research activities, development of policy, especially if the policy here is new, or if this is maybe the first plant in the state. Of course, the development of regulations and implementations of regulatory functions. Emergency response support and guidance. So what if you don't have enough appropriate staff on the plant, so you should probably contact, in that case, the external technical support. Testing, measurement, inspection and analyze services, communication support, staff training. If you will probably want somebody with a lot of experience to train your staff. So somebody that has seen and done and been around the nuclear plants for a long time. And of course, if you're designing a nuclear installation, like you're already talking today, you will probably want to have somebody who's done that before, or at least seen how everything should be done. So you'll probably call an external expert to help you. Okay.
So we have 1 minute and a half approximately.
Okay, thank you. Of course, important is also the independence. Independence of advice means that the provider of external expert support should be able to form and express a technical judgment that demonstrates integrity and is impartial and free from commercial, financial, and other pressures from interested parties. Of course, also free from the political. Really important is that the provider of external expert support should not be bound to directives from any other organizations regarding the result of its own work. Independence should be a characteristic of the expert. Moreover, the expert's judgment should be based solely on technical knowledge. Of course, to achieve continuous improvement of the effectiveness of external technical support, one of the most relevant attributes is a collaborative relationship between the plant and external TSOs. Such a relationship based on a long-term contracts and mutual benefits support the plant's vision, goals, and objectives. We can move on. We can just revise it shortly. Of course, the external expert support can be obtained from a variety of providers. If the provider of external expert support uses experts from outside its own organization as subcontractors, and even they uses their own subcontractors, the main the first one, so the first that you called should be independent. So he has to be the one that's reliable to you. And if this competence and capability should be clearly demonstrated to a regulatory body by formal means, such as the provision of examples of previous work experience of license or staff. Expert advice in specialized areas may not be available within the state, as we already talked, and so arrangement with organizations in other states may be necessary, which can raise specific issues that should be considered by the requesting regulatory body. And that would be it, briefly.
Okay. So, Kelhar, at the end of the day, I would ask you, who is responsible for making the final decision?
I would say that the regulatory body, of course, if he is the one that calls them.
Okay, exactly. So we move on with Mihelčič. Anže, you are with us?
Yes, I'm with you, but it's Mihelčič.
Okay, I'm sorry for mistake. So so please move on.
Okay, I will talk about nuclear safety research in Slovenia. Next slide. I will start with the question why we need the nuclear safety research. The main goal of research is to discover and create new knowledge and to transfer it into the world's fund. And then to share the discovered data with other scientists and also with ordinary people who should know what is going on with development in nuclear safety research. Highly developed research in the field of nuclear energy is typical in all countries using nuclear energy. As a rule, nuclear safety can be improved only with new knowledge being the result of research. The safety must not become outdated because of the leak of this nuclear safety research. And next slide, please. I will continue with money. How is this research financed in Slovenia? Today's system of financing science in research in Slovenia gives priority to basic research. This is driven by curiosity, resulting in new scientific information and new theories. It is necessary. This allows international relationships and access to international treasury of knowledge. Basic research is typically fully financed from the public funds, often including partial financing of the European Commission. Next slide, please. With the research we have or will also have some problems. Basic research is not necessarily related to immediate problems in operating nuclear facilities. Due to unclear prospects in the field of nuclear energy in the country over the past 2 decades and lack of systematic support at the state level, the number of young professional staff in the field has not been appropriately maintained. Therefore, the number of competent experts was significantly reduced. In such circumstances, the ability of professional institutions to be included in the system of authorized expert organizations is significantly smaller than in the past. About 40% of electricity in Slovenia is produced in Krško nuclear power plant. Considering the future perspectives for the operation of the NPP, it is necessary to ensure sufficient domestic professional support and appropriate system solutions that will improve the conditions and operation of the professional staff for these purposes. Next slide, please. According to rough estimates, sustainable development of nuclear research needs stable financial support in terms of full-time employment, at least to the minimum extent for the following key research areas, which can we see on the list on the slide. if a new nuclear power plant is going to be built, which now can I say not if it will be, the above figures should be doubled at least a few years before the constructions. And to the last slide, please. To conclude, we must ensure employment of young workers, at least one young employee per year in each group of 10 senior researchers, and ensure financing of the full process of the research, not only basics, but also applicable research.
Okay, so that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for keeping your time excellently. So I would just have a question. You were quite optimistic at this slide with the new power plant, and I would like to ask, what is the reference for these numbers here? Where have you found this?
I found the numbers in the resolution of Slovenia for nuclear safety.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question? If not, we will move on to Jakob Perne. You are with us?
Yes, hello.
Hi. I will find your presentation. So I think you will not have problems with time.
No, I will try to be as brief as possible.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
I have to, my seminar the topic is on organization of education and training of nuclear personnel. Firstly, I was trying to look at it from the perspective of law and regulations, and I have found one law and two regulation books that regulate mainly that the personnel should be trained, not specifically, and that the specific was internal for education and training. So if we move to the next slide, on the example of nuclear power plant in Krško, they have a internal department only for training the personnel nuclear, and the training consists of for the operating personnel consists of 82 weeks, which is divided in 4 phases. At the end is exam. The first phase is theoretical exam, and they write every week, they write a test and so on, so they have 18 weeks of this. In the second phase, they go through the nuclear power plant and find everything, that's every system, how it works, why it is there, and so on. And in the third and fourth phase, they are studying on the simulator and inside the reactor building with the supervision of another operator. So a part of this training is also done on Triga, the research reactor of Slovenia. And they have to, so the personnel, if they want to even start the course, they have to complete a university course in a technical field or similar education. And after they complete the exam, they have 4 weeks every year. They are practicing the basics, and in 2-year cycles they repeat everything from the 82 weeks that they do in the exam. Also, all other nuclear personnel are in training. The 9% of their work time is for the training, and every worker has to have the examination in protection from ionization radiation that has to be repeated every 5 years. So this is it from my part.
Okay, because we have a little bit more time. You were talking about the training in NEC, but for example, we also have Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration. We have also TSOs. Do they also have some training, or there are some?
Yeah, yes, the NEC has training for all outside workers and so on.
Okay, but for example, for TSO, when they are doing their expert opinion, it is important to increase diversity in the view of the issue which should be resolved. What would increase diversity? If NEC is going under the training, what would increase diversity within the TSO? What do you think?
That they will do some education outside in the other countries.
Well, or you can make education at home. So we have some faculties around, and also research. Research helps a lot to increase diversity of the TSO. Of course, if TSO is doing some research. Okay, we move to the next presentation given by Žiber. You are with us, I see.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. So please go ahead.
Okay, I will be really brief because we talked about most of this stuff. I'm going to talk about the main responsibilities of...
Žiber, we lost your voice, so...
the competent regulator. Do you hear me better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the main responsibilities of the competent regulatory authorities in Slovenia. Next, please. So we have two main authorities, the Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration and the Slovenian Radiation Protection Administration. In the next two slides, I will discuss and tell you which are the responsibilities for each of one. The next one, please. So the main responsibilities of the Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration are a supervision of radiation and nuclear safety, which consists mainly of issuing permits for nuclear power plants and etc., and the safety check of nuclear infrastructure and the check of operation of all nuclear infrastructure in Slovenia. Other responsibilities are inspection and supervision of nuclear safeguard, drafting legislation, emergency preparedness, monitoring, there is measuring radiation under that, drafting yearly and national reports, and international cooperation with the EIM and the OECD, that's Europe. Next one. The Slovenian Radiation Protection Administration is their main responsibilities are the supervision of nuclear activity and sources of ionizing radiation. That includes also for medical care and other things. They do radon measurements and monitoring of radiation contamination. And they also do like seminars on extinction reduction and prevention of ionizing radiation awareness. And they also do collaboration with the EU. So I think that would be it.
Okay, thank you for keeping your time. Under which ministries are Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration and Slovenian Radiation Protection Administration? Do you know?
The radiation is under
health?
Under the health administration, and for the nuclear safety is under okolje,
environmental.
Under the environment, it is, or
yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And now we will move to last presentation. Barbarič, you are with us?
Yes, here I am.
Okay, I will try to share your screen, okay?
Okay, just go to the second.
Okay.
So I was choosing this topic because all the other topics were taken by my colleagues, and I was hoping that neither of them is gonna cover this too much in detail, and luckily it didn't. So I will be covering the safe and secure transport of radioactive material, more precisely by road. So we have different types of nuclear materials that we are dealing in this nuclear sector. One is nuclear fuel. Then we also have spent nuclear fuel, which is activated and therefore more dangerous. Then we have other radioactive sources like for medical use, and then we have radioactive waste. So with the nuclear materials, it's normally dealing the Slovenian Agency for Nuclear Safety, or I don't know if I translated this correctly. You said something a bit.
Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration, but
yes,
we understand.
Yes,
it's
okay, let's go further. So transport of nuclear materials in general goes by 4 different ways, as all the transport, either by road, either by railway, either by sea, either by air. And for each of these ways of transport, we have different international conventions describing some of the rules, which are the same for all the countries in Europe. So in Slovenia, we usually take these conventions as the law. Just for the transport of nuclear materials by road, we have our own law, Slovenian Transport of Dangerous Goods Act, which is also based on the international convention ADR. So the transport should be safe, secure, and sustainable. And in Dangerous Goods Act, these radioactive sources are classified as dangerous goods under Class 7. Next, please.
Yeah.
So let's see how this depends to various types of nuclear materials. We have nuclear fuel, which is transported to various options. For NEC, it's usually distributed by road from Luka Koper to Krško or by railway. Then we have spent nuclear fuel, which is usually stored on the site. We have radioactive sources, which are also carried by various transportation options, and we have radioactive waste, which could be stored on site or transported. So to achieve safety, we must package it accordingly to Dangerous Goods Transport Regulation and also to ADR. To secure it, we need to secure it according to conventions, and sustainability was achieved in Slovenia because no nuclear accidents are reported during transport current day. Next, please. So Slovenian transport in the terms of road. So first of all is the packaging, which should be approved by organ responsible for nuclear safety or an organization designated by the organ. So these organs go high by the hierarchy. So the lowest is Agency for Radiation Safety, which is responsible for some small carriages for like medical use and veterinary use. Then we have the Agency for Nuclear Safety, which is under the ex-Ministry of Transport of now the, as mentioned, Ministry for Environment. And this agency deals with most of the nuclear transport. And for like some specific bigger transport, we have also general bigger European regulatory organs. So specific packaging guidelines should be according to the ADR, where it is also described how we should package it in more specific ways. And all the transport should be marked. All the packages should be marked with specially this described symbol. And all the vehicles should be also marked the same symbol, have technical examination every 6 months, and are speed limited to 70 kilometers per hour. Just a click for the photo. So here we can see the sign, which must be present on all the vehicles and also on all the transported nuclear material. Next.
1 minute.
Next, please. So yes, the equipment also, we must have yellow lights on our car, warning vests, gas masks, lamps. Drivers should have transportation of dangerous goods certificate, which lasts for 5 years, and we should have various types of documents. The most important is transport document. Next, please. So here we can see the important equipment, and next, please. Here we can see the transport document for the driver. And next, please. Next, please. Here we can see what is in general transport documents. So we have the one back. We have the UN number of goods. We have the name of transported goods, class of dangerous goods, number and description of the cargo. So mainly just descriptions in general. So as we can see, the client usually contacts the licensed transport company, which gets the permission from the Slovenian regulatory organ. Normally this is the agency. And in case of bigger cargo, we need also maybe some extras like police, firefighters, or security company. Okay, next. So here you can just click through. I did this example with trigger reactor. with 3 different paths. So normally the staff on the trigger reactor will choose the safest path, which is this, the first one. And then if you click through, there will be 2 more. And after that, they should get this transport document and permission to transport this cargo, like in this case, like fuel rods from Brnik Airport to the trigger reactor. And after that, then can, with the cooperation with transport company, it can be transported. So this is mainly it.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any question for Barbarič?
Yes, I would have 2 short questions. One is, did we transport spent fuel already in Slovenia? Are you aware of such exercises?
I mean, I think this, I'm not sure about this, but I think not our own spent fuel, but we have transferred from other countries. So I think it was transferred, I don't know, from some second European country through Slovenia to Luka Koper, I think once, but I'm not sure about that. But in terms of this spent fuel, there is probably a specific plan, bigger plan than this like normal frameworks to be made, and usually there are some protests every time about it. Am I right? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. There were at least 2. One, the spent fuel from trigger reactor went to Koper and then to US, and the second one was the spent fuel from the Austrian trigger reactor from Vienna, went also through Slovenia to Koper and then on the ship to US. Now, the second question, what is more dangerous to transport, fresh fuel or spent fuel?
Yeah, they say it's spent fuel because it's activated, so the radiation doses are much higher. Like in the fresh fuel, you can normally stand by next to it and also like just wear gloves and you're mostly safe, as far as I know.
Yep, that's correct. You are very, very safe next to the fresh fuel.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the last time, I would ask if Monterosso has come to the seminar. If he's not here, he will give the seminar in January or at some other occasion. So I think when I was listening to the Slovenian presentation, I found that in each presentation were at least partly mentioned the next principles of defense in depth: independence, diversity, redundancy, transparency, and segregation. And these are the main approaches how to ensure also the nuclear safety. So with this, I would finish. Professor Cizel, if you have some stuff to add.
Just thank you everybody for a nice presentations, and keep up good work. Thank you.
Thank you to all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank